In this video, I'm going to show you how to create an appointment reminder system using VAPI, Make.com, and Google Sheets. So by the end of this video, you will have a fully working AI assistant that makes outbound calls to your patients and it reminds your patients about their upcoming appointments. Let's go ahead and create a Google Sheet. So the Google Sheet is going to hold some data about our patients, and I've already predefined a few columns. So basically we have first name, phone number, just a flag to say if we have called the patient already, and then the appointments, date and time. So I've provided some sample data. So we have two patients, two phone numbers. We haven't called these people yet, and they have different dates and times for their appointments. So what we can do next is basically we can go to Make and we can create an automated workflow, which is basically reading the Google Sheet based on the data that we've already provided. And it's going to use this data to make a call using VAPI. So if you don't have an account in make.com, I'm going to add the link down in the description. So you can sign up. It's completely free and you don't need to pay anything. So once you have signed up, this will be your landing page. And then from here, what you need to do is you need to click on this button, which is create a new scenario. And let's create a new scenario. So the starting point of our scenario is going to be Google Sheets. So let's select this. And in here, what we need to do is basically we need to select the option for searching roles. So let's click on this. And as you can see, I already have a connection to Google Drive. So if you don't have a connection yet, you just need to click on this add button, follow the instructions on the screen so that you can connect your Google Drive to make.com. And from here, what we need to do is basically we need to select the actual file which contains the data. So in our case, the file is called patients underscore data. So let's go ahead and find this. So patients data. So let's select it. Now it's going to parse the file and figure out what columns it has. And in here, we can basically provide a filter to say which records we want to process. So what we want to do is we want to add a filter on this column just to make sure that we get only the records or only the patients who we haven't spoken to yet. So let's say code already should be set to no. And we also want to make sure that we have valid data and we want to say that the first name exists. So this is just to make sure that we don't add some crappy data basically for someone who doesn't have a first name. And after this, we want to limit this query to just one record for testing purposes. And once we have this, we can proceed to the next step. So now we're going to get one record or one patient at a time. And what we want to do is after this, we want to aggregate their data. So we want to use the array aggregator. So the array aggregator is going to give us different options, such as the total number of records or bundles, they call them in make.com. We want to get the row number because we're going to need that later. And after this, we want to select all the data which comes from the Google Sheet. So first name, phone number, called already, appointment, date and time. And from here, we just hit the save button. And now what we need to do is basically we need to iterate over this data set. So let's get the iterator component. And in our case, this will basically the input of the iterator will be the array, which was created by the array aggregator. And what we want to do next is we want to set a variable. So let's just use variable. So set variable. So we can call this assistant data, and I will explain to you what exactly this is going to do. So the variable is just a component that holds some data. So in our case, what we want to do is we want to store the data which we're going to use to create an assistant. So I've already predefined all the data that we need to create the assistant. So let me just paste this in here, and I'll explain you shortly what this does. So you can see that this is kind of a dictionary structure. It contains transcriber, model, voice, first message, and name. So basically, if you want to make a call using VAPI, you have two options. You can either create an assistant on the fly, or you can create an assistant in the VAPI dashboard, and then you can just refer to it. So the way I've created this dictionary is by using the VAPI documentation. So this is basically the VAPI documentation. And from here, what you need to do is you need to go to create call. And yeah, so in here, you've got many different properties which you can choose from. And if you click on this button, so basically you will see that it has an option which is assistant. So once you have selected the assistant's property, now you have a lot of additional properties which you can attach to the assistant. And yeah, so if we expand this drop down, you can see we've got transcriber, model, voice, first message. And yeah, so you can use this kind of user interface to build your dictionary, and you can provide all the necessary options which you want to use. And yeah, so in here you can choose the transcriber that you want to use. You can basically also add the language. So from here you can select the language. So in our case, we're going to use English. So yeah, and as you can see, as soon as you select some options from drop downs, you basically get a dictionary on the right hand side. And by doing this, you can easily create your assistant's data. And once you're done with populating all the options which you need, after this, you just copy this dictionary from this pane on the right hand side, and you can save it in Notepad or any kind of editor that you want. So just to be clear, you need to select like transcriber, then you need to provide the provider, language, model, and then for the model, this is basically the LLM, which is going to run VAPI and interact with your patients or users or customers. And you need to select the voice for the VAPI assistant, what the first message should be, and then this is the name of the assistant that we've assigned to it. It can be any name that you like, so this name doesn't really matter. And yeah, so now if we go back to make.com, we've pasted this assistance data. So now what we can do is we can save this into the variable, and we can move on to the next step, which is basically parsing this assistance data and making it a JSON object. I will explain why we need to do that. So let's just use this JSON component, and then let's say parse JSON. And in here, what we want to do is basically we want to put the assistance data that we just copied. So let's save this. And after this, what we want to do is we want to aggregate this data. So we're going to use the array aggregator again. And I think at this point we need to run the application so that we can basically get more options. So let me just unlink this bit because it's not going to work. So for this component, so now, just to test what we built so far, what we can do is we can just click on this button, which is run once, and what this is going to do is basically it's going to fetch patient's data from our Google Sheet. It's going to process the first record. It's going to go through the array aggregator, the iterator. It's going to set the variable that we assigned, and yeah, it's going to parse this assistance data, and let's see what the output will be. So let's run this. So run anyway, and yeah, so we got an error which is not valid JSON. So source is not valid JSON. So that's good that we got that. So now what we can do is we can open this variable that we set. We can copy the contents. So what we can do is basically we can open any kind of online JSON validator. Say I'm using JSON lint, so you can use any other basically website for JSON validation. It doesn't matter. And yeah, so now what we can do is we can basically paste the contents, and we can say validate JSON. So once you have resolved the issues with the JSON parsing, what you can do is you can go back to make.com, and you can copy the contents of the updated JSON and then paste that into the variable which we created earlier. And what we want to do on top of this is basically we want to replace some of basically we want to provide some dynamic inputs to this prompt. So in this case, we're saying ask if you're speaking to, and then we want to provide the name of the patient, which in this case is Jason. And what we want to do is we want to select this variable or this identifier, which is corresponding to the column in the Google Sheet. So let's do this. And similarly, what we need to do is basically we need to provide the date and the time of the appointment in here. And yeah, we can select appointment date and time. And once we've done this, then we can save the variable. And if we run the scenario now, I believe that this time the JSON will be parsed correctly. So now you can see that the JSON was correctly parsed, and we can move on to the next step, which is basically linking this component to the array aggregator. So if we open the array aggregator, you can see that now we have a lot of fields which we can choose from. So I've selected all the options, which is basically name, first message, voice, model, and transcriber. And you can click on the save button. So after this, what we want to do is basically we want to convert this object into a JSON object. So how do we do this? So we select the JSON module, and from here we're saying transform to JSON. So we want to use the keyword first, and we want to retrieve the first element from the array, because the array aggregator it's going to create an array, and we just want to get the first element from this array. And once we have done that, we can move on to creating an HTTP request. So let's select HTTP, and then from here what we want to do is basically we want to use this option, which is make a request. And yeah, so what this is going to do is it's going to send a post request to VAPI, and the request needs to be of type post. So let's modify this. And if we go back to the VAPI documentation, so basically in order to create a call, we need to send a post request to this URL. So we can copy this URL from here. We can go back to make.com. Let's paste the URL. So we know this is the URL which we need to basically send a request to. This is going to be a post request. And now we want to provide some headers. So we need to provide authorization, which we're going to basically populate very soon. And then the next header which we want to provide is basically content type. So the content type will be set to application/JSON. So the authorization is going to be a token which you can get from your VAPI account. So I will show you how to do that shortly. So let me just put a placeholder here, which is ABC, and we can come back to this later. So after this, what we need to do is we need to basically select the body type. In this case, it's going to be raw type. The content type is going to be JSON. And after this, we need to populate the request content. So the request content is going to be a dictionary, and then the first element in the dictionary is going to be customers. So the customers, this is of type list, and this contains data about the person who we're calling, such as their phone number and their name. So let's say the first element in this dictionary will be phone number. So what we can do is we can get the phone number from the Google Sheet. So let's select this, and don't forget to wrap all the individual variables into quotes. After this, we need to specify an extension. In this case, it's going to be like a default empty extension. And finally, we want to specify the name of the person who we're calling. And we can get this from this variable, which is first name. And once we've done this, then we can move on to defining the actual assistant. So the assistant is going to be this JSON string. So if you remember, we went through a few steps of getting the dictionary assistance data into JSON. So this is basically the outcome, which is a JSON string. So we can select this. And after this, what we need to do, okay, let me just wrap the assistant into quotes. And what we need to provide next is phone number ID. And let's give this some default value. So I'm going to explain you how to get the phone number ID and the application token or the authorization token for VAPI. So let's save this. And now what we can do is we can go to our VAPI dashboard. If you don't have an account in VAPI, it's completely free to sign up. I'm going to add a link down below in the description. And you also get around 1,000 free minutes if you want to implement any kind of assistance like inbound assistance, outbound assistance, and so on. And once you're in your account, what you need to do is you need to go to phone numbers, And in here, you're not going to have any numbers by default. So what you need to do is you need to click on this green button, create phone number. And I'm going to use a number that I've created in Twilio. So I'm going to add a link to this video somewhere on the screen, which explains step by step how to create a number in Twilio and how to set it up. And yeah, so I'm going to use this number from one of my previous videos. And what we need to do basically is, you can see here on the top right hand side, there is some sort of an identifier. And what this is basically the phone number ID, which we need to include in our post request. So you can just click on this button and save it somewhere. And in order to get the API key or the token for authorization, what you need to do is, from the menu on the left hand side, what you need to do is you need to go to org settings, and from here you need to click on API keys. So once you're on this page, you basically need to copy your private key, which is kind of a masked field, so you can't really see it until you copy it. So you can hit this button, copy your private key, and then you can go back to make and put it into the authorization field. So once you have copied over your authorization key and the phone number ID into the HTTP request, now what we can do is we can add one last component, which is about updating our Google Sheet. So basically, whenever we call somebody from our patient's Google Sheet, we want to mark the patient and basically say that we've already called this patient, so we don't call it over and over again. And in order to do this, we need to select this component, which is update role in Google Sheets. So what we need to do is we need to find our Google Sheet again. So let's click on this button, make examples, and we need to find patients data. And now we can select the sheet name. And after this, what we need to provide is the roll number, which we want to update. So if we click on this text box, so you can see that the roll number is already here. So let's select this. And after this, what we need to do is we need to basically select which column we want to update. In our case, we want to update this column called already. So we want to set this to yes, so that when we run the scenario multiple times, we don't call the same person over and over again. And yeah, so once this is done, we can click on save. And yeah, that's pretty much our scenario. Let's run the scenario now and see if we can get a call from the assistant. So my phone is ringing right now.
Hi, this is Jessica. I am calling from Wellness Partners. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How about you?
I'm glad to hear that. I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. Am I speaking with Jason?
Yes, it's Jason speaking.
Great. Thank you, Jason. I'm calling to remind you about your upcoming appointment on the 1st of June at 10:30 a.m. Can you still attend this appointment?
Yes, I can make it.
That's wonderful to hear. We look forward to seeing you on the 1st of June at 10:30 a.m. Have a great day, Jason.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Take care and see you soon. Bye.
So you can see that our outbound assistant, it made its first call, and you can see how realistic and how smooth it sounds. So you can basically automate any kind of outbound process, and yeah, you can replace that with an AI assistant. So if you found this video useful, please like it and subscribe to the channel. If you want to get full access to the template or the blueprint behind this video and any of my previous videos, please join my school community. The link should be down below in the description. Thank you very much for your time and see you in the next video.